Hello and welcome to Action Playbook Live. I'm Gilles Gallant, and you're watching the NFL pregame betting show here with the Action Network. We are live on YouTube and X and Twitter, and it's Conference Championship Day in the NFL. Patriots, Broncos in the AFC, Rams, Seahawks in the NFC. We're going to dive into both of those matchups. We're going to give out our favorite bets. We'll have player props, touchdown bets, parlays. Nick Giffen is going to join us in a little bit. He's going to talk about the luck rankings for conference championships, maybe some nerd bets. Evan Abrams, our director of research here at Action Network, he's going to give us an update on the latest betting trends, market moves, and maybe even some historical context for how the market is shaping up for these conference championships. But joining me off the hop are Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon, and we're going to give out our favorite bets for Patriots Broncos. And if you want to tail any of the bets that we give out today, the easiest way is to use quick slips. Those are in the YouTube chat. We're going to be dropping links in the chat after every pick we make. This way you can tail the bet as quickly as possible. And if you're watching on X and Twitter, Playbook, the account, is going to be tweeting our picks from the show so you can get the slips from there. All right, one last thing before we get started here. We got to talk about Action Pro, because if you want access to Action Pro, this is a perfect time to sign up for an annual subscription, because access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Kerner, Chris Raybon, all the members of the Action Analytics team. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code POD20 at sign up. One more time, that's POD20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, let's start with Patriots Broncos. Patriots road favorites around 3.5, total of 43. Now, Kerner, you wrote the game guide for this game. I don't want to give away what you kind of came to from a conclusion standpoint, but what player prop do you like from this game?
I'm going to go with Kayshon Boutte under 2.5 receptions. You can get it at -136 still. I locked this in earlier in the week at -110. I actually lost on this by a half last week when he made that, amazing touchdown grab over Derek Stingley, and, amazing throw by Drake May. But I'm running it back again this week because this is another tough matchup. He could, line up across from Pat Surtain often here. Plus, Mac Hollins is back. I don't think Mac Hollins' return will necessarily ding Boutte's, playing time, but it could ding his target share, especially, downfield. Plus, Boutte, like I mentioned last week in my pick note, has a 21% catch rate over expected, according to Next Gen Stats. Now, I expect, him and Drake May to probably be above average in that metric for years to come. But still, he is due for some regression in terms of, catch luck. So still project him, closer to 2.1 catches here. So still showing some value here at -136.
All right, Kayshon Boutte leading the catch luck rankings so far. But Kayshon Boutte, I will say, Kerner, it's a little scary for me on my part, because I like Kayshon Boutte to score a touchdown today. I bet at +280, and this is feeling like Calvin Ridley all over again for me. People might remember this from a couple years ago. I bet on Calvin Ridley for a touchdown. You were on the under for his receptions, and he finished with a big 0. So I'm hoping that maybe just one catch for a long bomb over Surtain, and then we
two catches for 60 yards and a touchdown is a pretty standard line for him. So I think we can thread the needle on this one.
All right. Kayshon Boutte under 2.5 receptions. That is the first prop given out today, and that is from the man, Sean Kerner. All right, Raybon, you are up, and I am seeing a prop for a Broncos running back. What are we doing?
Yeah, let's go with Jaleel McLaughlin under 23.5 rushing yards. I've actually seen this as high as 25.5 currently, so, shop around. But I'm projecting him for 17 yards rushing. And I thought I was low on him. And I looked at Kerner's projection, and Kerner has it for 16 yards. So, it's one of those things where you look at the Patriots run defense, and it's just been so good. In the 2 playoff games, the Patriots have allowed just 61 yards to backs on 31 carries. It's about 2 yards per. And McLaughlin, I know it seemed like, he was very involved last week. He had a really productive game, but he only played on 10 of 72 snaps, 14%. So, now you're playing a Patriots defense that completely eradicates the run. And Sean Payton didn't really run the ball last week against the Bills, which were one of the worst run defenses in the entire National Football League. They were bottom 5. And so that's why, I've generally been higher on Stidham and, kind of like his props all across the board, because I still think that the Broncos are going to be pass heavy in this matchup, because no one has been able to run on New England with Milton Williams in the lineup. He has, in the games that he's played, they've allowed just 81 yards rushing per game, 3.7 yards per carry. In the 5 games he missed, they allowed 147 rushing yards per game and 5 yards per carry. So he has been the difference. Remember that Vrabel scheme, Jeffrey Simmons used to be anchoring that scheme, and the Titans used to give up nothing on the ground. And now he's kind of taken that to New England with Milton Williams in that Jeffrey Simmons role, so to speak. So I think that McLaughlin as the number 2 running back, a guy who was a healthy scratch half the year, isn't in a great spot to go over his rushing line here. He's had 22 yards or less in 5 of the 9 games that he has been active for anyway. So I think his median is even another 5 yards below that for this spot. So give me McLaughlin under 23.5.
Yeah, and I think maybe Peyton might just be a little bit out on McLaughlin too, but just because of how much they've been using Harvey. I mean, they were even thinking about activating J.K. Dobbins this week in this spot too. So, fading Jaleel McLaughlin here under 23.5. I think you even said there might even be a 25.5 out there right now. So, fading the Broncos running back. I'm actually going to do an interception prop. So last week I took Josh Allen to throw an interception against this Broncos defense. I'm going to take Drake May. Now I grabbed it at plus 110 a couple of days ago. It's since moved to minus 110. That's probably the threshold. That's about as far as I would go on that prop. But yeah, like he's got an interception in both of his playoff games. And you've seen his turnover-worthy play rate. It doubles versus pressure compared to a clean pocket. Broncos, they're second in pressure rate per dropback. The pass defense, they're top 3 in defensive DVOA. They're top 3 this year in total passes defended. I mean, they picked off Josh Allen twice last week. I'm not sure if Drake May is going to be as cavalier as Josh Allen will be, like with that first interception that he threw. But I think some of those deep passes, especially if they're trying to throw the deep ball against this Broncos defense, I think that could set up well for an interception. So looking right now, if you parlay all 3 of these, right now seeing it around plus 110. So it's probably about plus 450 right now if you parlay all 3 of these picks. The odds on the booty reception prop has moved down, obviously, as the week has gone on from Kerner. But so those are the 3 bets. Kayshon Boutte, under 2.5 receptions. Jaleel McLaughlin, under 23.5 rushing yards. Drake May to throw an interception. Those are our best bets for Patriots Broncos. Now, normally I like to do a touchdown bet to start the show. I'm going to save those for the end. Kerner, you're going to join me at the end of the show. We'll give out some touchdown bets for these conference championships. Kyle Murray from Roto Grinders will be joining us in a bit as well for a prop lotto parlay. So, guys, why don't you take a quick break? We'll get you back here. We'll talk about Rams Seahawks, but let's talk with Derek Carty now and see what player props he likes for the conference championships. We now welcome back to Action Playbook Live. My guy, Derek Carty, creator of the Blitz projections for the NFL. You could follow him in the Action app at Derek Carty. It's all one word. Remember, grab those quick slip links in the chat because these prop lines, they may move quickly once Derek gives them out. But we have a prop for each conference championship game. So let's start with Patriots Broncos. Derek, what pick do you like?
First one I'm looking at is Kayshon Boutte, under 2.5 receptions, minus 136 at FanDuel is the best odds on the board right now. The Blitz is projecting 1.9 here, so a little more than half a reception under the line. A lot of this has to do with how crowded the wide receiver room is, for one thing. Mac Hollins is coming back from the IR. We know they love him. They love his blocking. He's going to be on the field a lot. We know Stephon Diggs has been on the field more in the postseason. And they like their other receivers too. There was a quote that came out of New England this week about Demario Douglas. They said by taking advantage of the opportunities Pop Douglas gets, which he has done, we have to continue to find ways to get him the football and have him help us. So they have all three of those guys. They have rookie Kyle Williams, who's going to be in the mix. There's just a lot of bodies to throw to in this offense, and there might not even be that much throwing in this game because they're facing Jarrett Stidham and the Broncos here. They're 4-point favorites. It looks like a rushing game script, so I think the under here for Booty looks really good.
For sure. And I think another thing too is I do expect Drake May to do a lot more dump offs as well to like Ramondre Stevenson or even Travion Henderson. So like you said, Kayshon Boutte under 2.5 receptions, seeing best odds right now around -135. Okay, now let's move to what I think is the actual Super Bowl this weekend. Rams Seahawks. What's your favorite bet from that game?
This one feels tough, but I like it. I like the way it projects, and I think the way the game is expected to play out is going to be in our favor here. I'm looking at Blake Corum under 7.5 carries, plus 106 at DraftKings is the best odds on the board. The Blitz is projecting 6 carries here, so about 1.5 under the line, which is certainly well under Blake Corum's average this year. But I think when you look at what types of games he's in when he doesn't rush that often, it really kind of lends itself to what kind of game script we're going to see here. In games that the Rams have won, Corum's averaged over 9 carries per game. In games that the Rams have lost, he's only averaged 7, which would be under the line here. And 2 of those games were actually overtime games that, he got a bit inflated from. So I think when you looked and you see that they're 2.5-point underdogs here against Seattle, and that they should probably have to throw way more than usual. I think that this looks like a spot where we can expect Corum to, his overall rushing carries, to stay in check.
Well, the one thing that you could see from the McVay offense, the way the strategy was, is it was almost like you get this drive and now you get this drive. Like Kyron Williams would start the game, then Blake Corum would get the second drive. But you started to notice, at least I did, in that Bears game that Blake Corum's carry opportunities started to really wane in the second half as the Rams were making that push. So Blake Corum under 7.5 carries. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at those 2 box scores as well and seeing that he went over this in both games. But that's why we're getting this value. And because of this game script, it actually is showing a little bit of value here around plus 105 at DraftKings. So that is Blake Corum under 7.5 rushing attempts. That is against the Seahawks. That is his favorite bet from the NFC Championship game. And Kayshon Boutte under 2.5 receptions. You can get the quick slip links in the YouTube chat if you want to tail either of those bets. So make sure to follow Derek in the Action app. And Derek, we'll talk again soon.
Thanks very much. Good luck, everyone.
All right, we now welcome in Dr. Nick Giffen, the creator of the Luck Rankings. You can read up on this every week in the Action app during the NFL season and the playoffs, where he lists the luckiest and unluckiest NFL teams based on what we saw on the field. Nick, it's good to see you, buddy. Where are we going with our first pick for the conference championships?
Yeah, we'll start with the luck rankings, and both of these games are what we call playoff luck overs, not in that they don't meet our regular season luck rankings threshold for an over, but any positive luck total has gone 23, 14, and 1 to the over, and so we'll start with LA and Seattle over 46.5. I like this one. This has a luck total of plus 0.69. Playoff luck overs, like I said, 62% to the over. In nearly a 40-game sample size since 2018. Our expected scores, which power the luck rankings, had the 2 regular season games between these 2 teams at totals of 50 and 64.1. Now, in the first game, they only scored 40 points, but the expectation based off the underlying data was closer to 50, based off the way these teams played the game. So a little bit unlucky to, have a higher total in that first game. And then, of course, in the second game, they scored into the 70s in points, coming way over expectation. But you get the idea. Both of these games in the regular season should have been above this 46.5 based off the underlying data. The Rams offense, everybody's saying, oh, they're struggling. They're so bad. But they've still scored over 30 points per game in their last 5, even including last week's game against the Bears, which was their worst game of the season offensively. So I'm not too worried about it. I think, Matthew Stafford is going to be just fine. This offense is going to get rolling. Sean McVay is going to, hopefully have a better play calling game. And I make this game above that key number of 47.
Yeah, I think of that first game of the expected scores with 50. Like Sam Darnold, he threw 4 interceptions in that game, and some of them were even in Rams territory too. So, definitely the Seahawks. I think their offense should kind of be able to match up here in this spot. Before we talk about the next pick, this is off the cuff. I just wanted to ask, do either of these games qualify for maybe potential overtime bets?
No, not really. It's maybe the Denver one would be a better candidate just because kicking in Denver is, a really nice thing, and you want to have good kicking to have a chance at overtime.
For sure. Okay. Well, speaking of Denver, how are we playing this Broncos Patriots game?
Yeah, this one is also a playoff luck over, but I couldn't quite get there myself. So instead, I'm going to look at this Denver defense. I'm going to take them to have over 3.5 sacks or 4+ sacks. You can get that -145 at Bet365. Shop around. You may be able to find it at some other books. I think that was the only place I saw it. If you want to pivot, over 6.5 game sacks, which is both defenses, I think is totally fine, was available at Caesars. So, but just focusing on this Denver defense, Drake May has been taking sacks at an incredibly high rate against really good defense. He's been incredibly defensive dependent on the number of sacks he's taken. Against top half sack rate defenses, he's taken 3.8 sacks per game compared to just 1.9 against bottom half sack rate defenses. And if we limit it to just the top 11 defenses in sack rate, he actually takes 4.6 sacks per game, and Denver is number 1, right? So, I mean, we would expect maybe even over that 4.6. I'm conservatively projecting what I think is conservatively projecting Denver for 4.5 sacks in this one. Drake May has taken 10 sacks in 2 playoff games, both against which were top 10 sack rate defenses, number 6 Chargers and number 8 Houston Texans in terms of sack rate. So again, that's with a healthy offensive line. Will Campbell, healthy at left tackle, Jared Wilson healthy at left guard. So, I think this is just a spot where this number over 3.5 feels very easy. I'd make this like -200 at over 3.5 sacks. So give me the Broncos defense to get to Drake May quite a bit today.
Yeah, I love this bet. I love the idea of the Broncos getting a ton of pressure, especially on the left side, because I think Will Campbell is a little overrated at this point. But that being said, Denver defense over 3.5 sacks, -145 is the best odds that we're seeing right now. I think that correlates to a lot of bets we like here on the show today with the Booty under receptions, even the Drake May interception as well. So, all right, that is the luck rankings with Dr. Nick Giffen. Make sure to follow him in the Action app, Nick_Giffen. Also, Bet What Happens Live, both conference championship games. He's going to be in the Action Network Discord doing some live bets. Those both start at the 2-minute warning. So, Nick, thank you very much. We'll see you more in the Action Network Discord here tonight.
Sounds good.
All right, we now welcome in our Director of Research, Evan Abrams. He's my go-to guy when it comes to finding out the latest betting trends and data, especially when it comes to the markets of sides and totals. And you can check out his weekly betting primer on the Action Network app for everything we need to know going into the conference championship. So, Evan, I think we should just start going game by game here, because right now the way that this spread has moved a lot for the Patriots Broncos, especially initially with the quarterback change. Can you just explain kind of how it's unfolded and where we're at today now when it comes to the spread for that game?
Yeah, especially Denver and New England, just a unique scenario. So at the current moment, the Patriots getting about 66% of tickets in Denver. It's been as high as about 70 and change over the last few days. But if you look historically, last 20 years, only 4 road teams in the conference championship have even closed with 65% of tickets or higher. Of course, those teams 0-4 straight up and against the spread, not a great history. And ironically enough, the only other one to close as a road favorite, of course, New England in Denver in 2016. So we come exactly full circle there. And the thing is, even if it gets lower, which honestly I could possibly see by kickoff with under 3 hours to go, just 2-8 against the spread at 60% or higher, lost 7 in a row against the spread. So not great history for these teams. Road, chalk, big tickets. So that's kind of what we're seeing with New England. Now, the most interesting part about this, Jill, is the fact that it has moved, right? It's gone from about -5.5 to -3.5. So again, last 20 years conference championship, we've only seen 2 favorites move 2+ points down. Usually in these types of games, we tend to see favorites kind of get a little higher. Well, obviously a very unique scenario with no Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham in here. And at the moment, they seem to be getting the action, but not enough in terms of the big bets. So last 20 years, we've only seen 2 of those games. 2018, New England, Jacksonville. 2006, Seattle, Carolina. Now, both those teams who were favorites, who saw the line go down, both won outright and ended up losing in the Super Bowl. So that's something we could see today, but interesting nonetheless when you've seen A, the line movement, and B, the tickets. So we'll have to see what happens 2.5 hours to kick.
Man, this is like a memory lane for me. Like the New England Denver game from 2016. I just think of that with Peyton Manning and going to the Super Bowl, and just like I think of like how close the Patriots were
The
to winning
2 point
that game.
conversion, yeah, it was
Yeah,
tight.
with Gronk. Oh, that was crazy game. And then of course the New England Jacksonville game. Jags probably you could make a case they probably could have should have won that game, and
Should have,
just
yeah.
with with the Miles Jack interception and whatnot too. So great stuff there. So Patriots Broncos again seeing that spread move right now down to 3.5. But let's talk about now the NFC Championship. What I would be calling right now, I think it's the actual Super Bowl if I had to pick between
Yep.
the two games. But either way, conference championships. Talk to me a little bit about the Rams now, because again, this is their third road game now on in the playoffs, and I think that is important as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, maybe one of the more fun stats I'll say right now is if you look at Action Labs from Action Network, you look at all these bet percentages. Right now, that game is exactly 50% of tickets on both sides. So that's why we are sitting at exactly 2.5 on the spread. It really hasn't budged much throughout the entire week. But the more interesting thing when you look at just the trends is what you said. So the Rams, first team in the Super Bowl era to lose ATS in both the wild card round and divisional round, but advance to the conference championship. Well, this week, no matter since they are 2.5 point underdogs. It's a win or lose game. But third consecutive road game after those two ATS losses for the Rams this week. And in history, it's not a good thing. So division realignment in 2002, teams playing their third consecutive road game in the playoffs are just 12 and 30 straight up. Now, the funny thing is this, you look at Stafford, he's actually done this twice in his career. And ironically enough, both have come in the playoffs and both really, really tight losses. So we'll see how it goes for the Rams today, but history not exactly on their side. And then you kind of flip it around. You do have a divisional playoff game here and home favorites in divisional playoff games, 10-0 straight up in the last 5 years. And if you go back last 30 years, you just look at favorites in divisional conference championship games are 8-1 straight up. The only loss, the Jaguars to the Titans back in 1999-2000. So it is a decent history spot right now for Seattle, and especially talking about the rest, having to travel across the country. Bit of a difficult thing for McVay and the Rams, but we'll see what history says today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Rams are still, I think there's a good, like you said, with the 50-50 split, they're still getting a lot of public sentiment here. But
Correct.
yeah, did not think I would be thinking of Steve McNair right now at this point, just thinking back to that 99-2000 season. Yeah, we can't escape the Rams. Even they were in that Super Bowl at some point. So, all right,
Fair
let's
enough.
talk about Bet Labs because again, Bet Labs, and we can find really good systems and ways to be able to play this. And if we're going to be making a bet today of either of these conference championships, which way would Bet Labs steer us?
Yeah, so we've got four choices, and they've come down with one. We're looking at Denver. Now, if you just look at home underdogs in the NFL playoffs recently, 15-4-2 against the spread since 2014, but probably more importantly, covering the spread by 5.5 points per game, and 11-10 straight up, winning outright. Now, if you look since 2018, it's honestly even better recently. 9-6 straight up for these home underdogs, 12-3 against the spread. So earlier in the week, Bet Labs took a stab at Broncos plus 5.5. 4.5 is just fine. Honestly, at this point, I think you'd probably pass at the 3.5,
Yeah.
but got to get in the Discord. Got to check out the picks. That's what they're on. That's what they're rolling with. Let's go with
And
Jared
that's
Stidham.
And that's what we need. Well, I feel like too, I'm seeing some of the people chatting as well. Like, I feel like there's some people who are like, I cannot believe we bet money on Jarrett Stidham today. But this is where we're at now in the NFL in the conference championship. So, Evan, great job as always. Make sure to check out his weekly betting primer. He's also going to be live tonight, I believe, with Brandon Anderson for the conference championship recap show, which is available on the Action Network podcast and Action Network YouTube feed. So, Evan, talk again soon, and good luck with your bets today.
All right, good luck, everybody.
All right, time to take it up a notch. It is time to hit the lotto, where we try to get a little bit crazy, try to find a plus EV parlay for the conference championships. And joining me today is Kyle Murray from Roto Grinders. He's an awesome prop analyst. And if you watch Action Island, he is the originator of the Big Load Bet of the Week. And of course, Sean Kerner, he's always finding value in those long shot markets. So there's going to be a ton of prop angles, I'm sure, that he is going to attack today. But let's start with you, Kyle. What kind of prop lotto will we do for the conference championships?
Yeah, I figured with, just two games in the slate, we would look at some alt lines and take some of these potential ladder type plays and put four of them into a parlay here. I'm starting off with Stephon Diggs, 80 plus receiving yards. This game does have the makings of a potential, defensive slugfest, but I actually really like this spot for Stephon Diggs. It looks like he's going to have the easier of the matchups for these Patriots wide receivers. And over the course of the season, Diggs has quietly been very efficient. He's in the top 10 amongst qualified receivers in yards per route run. So I think he can take advantage of this, pretty low line and also softer matchup in this game. And so I like laddering Stephon Diggs quite a bit today. It's actually one of my favorite plays of the week for Stephon Diggs for the first 80 plus receiving yards.
All right. So good start there. So Stephon Diggs, 80 plus receiving yards. With that one, again, it depends, I guess, how much he's going to be seeing the Surtain matchup, but I imagine they're going to move him around. They've been kind of using him in bubble wrap for a lot of the years, saving him for this type of game. So that's the first leg. Stephon Diggs, 80 plus receiving yards. Where are we going with the next one?
Yeah, and then I'm going to lean into that, the big load play of the week. Two running back props here. Leg two is going to be RJ Harvey, 80 plus rushing and receiving, so 80 total yards for RJ Harvey. I think that they're just going to look to lean on him a little bit more. Obviously, the guys before talked about Jill McLaughlin's snap count being fairly low last week. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins going to continue to be out for this game, so we should see a continuous workload carrying over for this one for RJ Harvey, who obviously has upside in both the ground and the passing game. And then Kyron Williams, 25 plus receiving yards. I like Seattle in this one. I think the Rams could be trailing a bit. Kyron Williams has been, the primary running back in the receiving game for the Rams so far this postseason and since week 10, since the trade deadline. So I like 25 plus receiving yards for Kyron Williams, kind of leaning into that potential game script. And then last leg, Jackson Smith and Jigba, 110 plus receiving yards. This guy is just, he's always prone to have a big breakout game here. I think this could be a spot where they maybe lean on him a bit more with no Zach Charbonnet. Obviously, they're going to have Kenneth Walker leading things there in the backfield for the Seahawks, but I do think that maybe we see them forced to throw a bit more with the potential close game, 2.5 point spread in this one rather than the 30-point blowout we saw last week. And then obviously with their run game going into a bit of a newfound dynamic with Charbonnet missing this one, I think they could potentially lean on that air a little bit more. So give me JSN 110 plus receiving yards as the fourth leg here.
This all feels pretty doable. I mean, especially from a correlation standpoint, if you look, if we're fading Jaleel McLaughlin, that means RJ Harvey will likely see more of the touches. Stephon Diggs, if he's going to be moving around, then the 80 plus receiving yards, it's also one of your favorite bets of the week. Kyron Williams seems to be taking more of a role in the backfield over Blake Corum, and JSN 100 plus 10 receiving yards. Again, just that almost feels like his median at this point.
Yeah.
Like just to have, so, when you parlay all those together, I'm seeing 80 to 1 right now at DraftKings from Kyle. So, great spot here. Got basically one prop from each team to be able to sweat for the entire Sunday for conference championships. So that is the Lotto parlay from Kyle. Now, Kerner, you are up, and I think you're taking the same approach. You're going to take a prop on each side for each team. Where are we going?
Yeah, so I got a couple of props from each game that I think are pretty correlated. That's why I like this four pack here. But for the first game, I'm going to take Jared Stidham for 2+ passing touchdowns. It's pretty crazy how the market's acting like Stidham's replacing prime Pat Mahomes or something here. I think it's kind of crazy that his odds are like plus 200 to plus 220 and just throw multiple touchdowns. So I like that leg of it. But also, there's a chance that the Broncos play at the lead at some point. The Patriots have to throw more. That's why I like Kyle's Diggs, alt over. So I'm going to go 60 plus here. His playing time is way up in the playoffs. So I think he's just has way more upside right now. And then for the Seahawks Rams game, I'm going to have to fade our guy, Gilles, Rashid Shaheed under 22.5 receiving yards. Yeah, I think it's the first time I've ever bet on like his under. So I know how scary it is, but he's been making most of his plays, in the return game, in the run game. He has as many return touchdowns the past 4 games as he does receptions. So
Yes,
he just really hasn't made his mark, as a receiver in this offense. I mean, sure enough, he could go for 80 yards a day. But I like that leg because Elijah Arroyo is back. So we could see more 2 tight end sets at the expense of Shaheed's playing time. So I'm going to go with Elijah Arroyo over 7.5 receiving yards. He's been out for multiple games on IR, but as you know, Jill, I'm very high on the rookie. So
Yes, sir.
I think those correlate pretty well. So all 4 of these combined, you should get this, around 20 to 1, 23 to 1, somewhere around there. But I like it just because of all the correlation within it.
Well, and I mean, the only one that I even have like a beef with is the Shaheed pick, and it's only because I'm taking his touchdown. But that being said,
Yeah.
there are other angles for him to score, like in kickoff or punt return. He might even see more rushing attempts maybe today because of Charbonnet being out. So again, there's just more upside on that front for him to score. But yeah, when I saw that you tracked under on his receiving yards, I will say I felt a little betrayed,
No,
but
again,
that's okay.
if he returns a touchdown, that's great. You know what happens when he returns a touchdown? The Seahawks don't run any plays on offense, so he can't get any receptions. So I think we can make this work.
Hell yeah. All right. So if you want to tail either of these parlays from either Kerner or Kyle, we just dropped the quick slip links in the YouTube chat so you could tail those. And then you don't have to try and find the menus and all that stuff. It'll just build the parlay for you. So, all right. That is it for you guys. So, Kyle, keep crushing it. We'll see you again soon for Super Bowl 60 coverage. Kerner, let's get Raybon back on here and give out our favorite bet for Rams Seahawks. So, Seahawks home favorites around 2.5. The total around 46. Let's build the same game parlay though. So Kerner, you go first. What do you like for Rams Seahawks? Is it going to be the Shaheed pick? I hope not. Please not.
No, I'm going to leave that out of this one.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the fun one for us. I know the three of us have attempted, sometimes successfully, at attacking this Rams tight end situation, specifically Terrence Ferguson. And I think the best way to invest in Ferguson is to take his longest reception over 11 and a half yards because his average depth of target was just under 18 yards on the season, which is 6 yards higher than the next qualified tight end. So he's typically seeing targets downfield. He doesn't catch many of them, but that's the point is if he does haul in one of them, it's usually going to be over, 12 yards or more. So just based on their usage last week, Parkinson led the room with like a 43% routes rate, and Ferguson wasn't that far behind with just under 40% routes run rate. So I liked his usage last week. I think he saw 5 targets. So again, all he needs to do is probably catch one pass to clear this. So gonna go with his longest reception over 11 and a half yards here.
Yeah, just looking at the box score for last week, 1 for 5, but for a 19-yard reception. So that feels really
Yeah,
low at 11 and a half. Like just given
yeah.
the eight. Yeah.
Well, he might
All
get
right.
zero. That's the
Yeah, well,
problem, but
that's obviously.
worth the risk.
I just think that just seeing so many downfield targets, right?
Yeah,
It just seems wild that that number has gone
yeah.
down in that stretch. Raybon, what are you doing? Are you going to be looking at another under? Are you looking at a touchdown prop? What do you like for this game?
Yeah, let's go with a touchdown prop, Kenneth Walker to score. And I love that this number's come down. I think earlier in the week it was up at like minus 180. It probably should actually be around there. I know, there's a lot of love or maybe a little too much love for the Rams right now, but Kenneth Walker in the game Charbonnet was out earlier this year, 17 touches and 2 touchdowns in that game. And then, of course, last week when Charbonnet went down pretty early in the game, Walker finished with 22 touches and 3 touchdowns. So I wouldn't blame you for even, betting him to score multiple touchdowns as well if you want, better juice. But 20 touchdowns for Walker plus Zach Charbonnet in 18 games this season. So they're averaging over 1 a game. And, either one of them has scored in 13 of the 18 Seahawks games. That's 72%. And if you just look at the usage for Walker last week and you look at, the guys that have been, on and off the roster, like they're going to have Holani. I think they have Akers and Velus Jones up this game, but those guys really haven't seen a lot of carries this year. So Walker likely gets that full, Walker and Charbonnet role. And then those guys are left to pick up the scraps. We saw Walker get 14 of the 14 backfield carries before garbage time last week after Charbs went down. So 72% touchdown rate combined for those two guys. I think that's fair to kind of project over to Walker in this game. So I love him to score at minus 139 and would even sprinkle in some 2 touchdowns as well.
I think it's telling too, Raybon, like when you look at the way that they've stacked the touchdown odds, because you see Kenneth Walker around minus 140, but they're assuming Holani is going to be running back too. He's around like plus 750. And Cam Akers, I'm seeing like 25 to 1 right now for him to score a touchdown as well. So this is clearly Kenneth Walker's backfield at this stage and coming off a 3 touchdown game. Yeah, I'm surprised we were only getting minus 140. Like I thought it would be closer to minus 200. So I'm going to take Old Faithful here, guys. I'm going to take Devontae Adams for a touchdown. He's around plus 130. when we first started doing the show over the first few weeks, especially in the Touchdown Show podcast, like I would bet on Devontae Adams almost every week because you could get him around plus 130, plus 145. But ever since that game against the Eagles where he scored that big touchdown, he hasn't been at plus odds pretty much for the remainder of the year. So I'm going to take him here when we can get him around plus 130. I mean, he led the NFL in targets inside the 10-yard line despite missing 3 games. And I do think the Rams are going to try to maybe even revert back to more targeting Puka Nacua between the 20s and then Adams, finishing it off in the end zone. Like he didn't play in the second game when they faced off. That was the Terrence Ferguson breakout game essentially. But in the first game, they clearly were trying to get him the ball. 8 targets, 2 of them in the end zone. He had a 1 yard. He only had 2 catches. One of them was for a 1 yard touchdown catch, and that's really all that matters. Like for me with Devontae, and I think it doesn't matter if it's on Witherspoon or Reek Woolen. I think he can beat that matchup, especially if it's one-on-one coverage. So Devontae Adams right now, if we parlay Devontae Adams for a touchdown, Kenneth Walker for a touchdown, and Terrence Ferguson longest reception. I think you can only parlay that at a couple of books. Right now, I'm seeing Bet365 plus 625 for this parlay. So that's going to be our parlay for Rams Seahawks. And we just dropped the link in the YouTube chat if you want to tail that parlay for the NFC Conference Championship. All right, Raybon. Great work today, man. We'll see you and Sean over the next 2 weeks. I'm sure you're going to be doing a ton of content for Super Bowl 60 Fantasy Flex podcast. We'll be back for the Touchdown Show podcast as well. We're going to preview the Super Bowl. We'll have touchdown bets, first touchdown. We're going to have a bunch of them, I imagine, some long shots. But let's do some touchdowns now for this Sunday for conference championship, and we can bring on Sean Kerner to do the touchdown show with me here. And if this is your first time watching the show, this is kind of how it works, where we take our favorite touchdown bets and we go from the lowest odds to the highest odds, and we'll try to rip through these pretty quickly, and then we'll build off a touchdown parlay to round it out. So Sean, why don't you start us off? What is I guess this would be your favorite touchdown bet of conference championship Sunday?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jackson Smith-Njigba at plus 105. I mean, he's been arguably the best receiver in the league this year, in my opinion. So I like getting here at plus money, and the Rams have been giving up some big games to wide receiver lately, so I like the matchup. So give me a JSN at plus 105.
Yeah, you're essentially getting like the offensive player of the year at plus odds to score a touchdown. That's pretty wild. I'm going to take the wide receiver one on the Broncos side. I'm going to take Cortland Sutton. 9 targets in the divisional round, led the Broncos pass catchers in snaps and routes run. I also think Christian Gonzalez is a little overrated. Maybe I'm just being a Pats hater here, but I just seen him have a lot of coverage issues in some of these games I watch him in. And Troy Franklin is questionable. Pat Bryant's coming off a concussion. For me to get a wide receiver one at this price, I just think at plus 280, it's a bit of an overreaction with having Jarrett Stidham at quarterback instead of Bo Nix. So that is the mild pick for me. Let's take it up a notch. What is your next touchdown prop you like, Sean?
I'm actually going to go with the Broncos defense special teams to
Nice.
score a touchdown at plus 550. You're on Drake May interception. Nick's on the Broncos to get a ton of sacks, which I love. I wrote that up in my game guide where, Drake May has been strip sacked 5 times already in 2 playoff games. So I think they're going to put some pressure on him. They could, jar one loose or two. So give me their defense to score at plus 550. And, Marvin Mims does have a punt return touchdown this year. So, check the site, but I want to include special teams as well to get at plus 550 here.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for it to be a pick six, but I think I envision it more of a Marvin Mims return touchdown and the crowd just going insane as a result. Well, I'm kind of with you guys that I'm not very high on the Patriots passing game. I did bet on Kayshon Boutte for a touchdown earlier in the week. I'm not feeling as great about it, so I'm pivoting over to Drake May for an anytime touchdown. It's around plus 330. Obviously, you're facing a team that plays heavy man coverage in the Broncos. I think that sets up well for May to use his legs. Leads the NFL in total scrambles. He was second in scrambles per game during the regular season. Hasn't really had to use his legs too much so far through the playoffs, but the last time he was really scrambling a little bit more. He scored twice versus the Bills. So I think that if this game turns into a tough matchup for the passing game, May's going to call his own number near the goal line. So anything over 3-1. I really like that. Let's get spicy now. Let's do a little bit of a long shot here. And this is right out of the Sean Payton playbook. Tell me what you like for this spicy touchdown bet.
I'm sticking with Nate Adkins here. He's all the way down to 17-1. I mean, I feel like when I first started talking about this early in the week, he was like 30-1, 25-1. So still showing some thin value here. He scored 4 touchdowns in 26 games now, the last 2 seasons. So he should be a long shot, but not, 17-1. And returned last week to a 30% routes run rate. Lucas Kroll didn't get elevated from the IR, so he's in his full-time role, and in that role, I have him closer to 12-1 here.
Yeah, Nate Adkins, man, that would be such a Sean Payton move to near the goal line to give him like a tush
Yep.
push or like a jet sweep type of carry. Like, yeah, and I mean it was as high as 20-1 earlier in the week. It's still like here around 17-1. I am going to take the Seahawks backup running back, and now that could be Cam Akers or that could be Velus Jones, but I think it's going to be George Holani. And this was a guy that I think you talked about a lot earlier in the year when there was potential of Kenneth Walker maybe having an injury. But Holani is going to be the Charbot replacement, I believe, in this spot. And in the lone game that Charbonnet was out this year, he did see 10 carries. I think this has still been more of a split backfield. Obviously, I think Kenneth Walker is going to get first and second crack. But when you got a Seahawks team that runs the ball at the third highest rate in the NFL during the regular season, I think that just opens up opportunity for a running back too to be able to get a score here. I think both Walker and him could score in this game. And actually looking right now at our Action Pro props tool, George Holani is the biggest edge for touchdown odds in that game. So I'm going to take him here at 8-1. Before we do the touchdown show parlay, Sean, what was your comp for George Holani coming out of college? Can you remember?
I don't remember that one. I know Charbonnet was Nick Chubb, but I don't remember having one for Holani. I think he was a little too deep down for like an official comp for me.
I know he was undrafted out of Boise State, so I think you always surprise me with a comp of you're like, you know what?
I'll come up with one a bit later, but yeah, for today, I guess it's Charbonnet because he should be kind of in that role.
Awesome. All right, so let's do a parlay here. I think JSN. I love that as the anchor leg. Let's have that as the first leg. I think I want to put Cortland Sutton on this one. That was my favorite touchdown bet of the week when we did the Touchdown Show podcast together earlier in the week. But Kerner, I'm going to cheat here for this third leg. Instead of going with like George Holani or Nate Atkins, what if we just put Devontae Adams on there instead? And then that way we can get some decent wide receivers. Basically, we're taking the wide receiver one on three different teams. And if you parlay all three of those, I'm seeing around 15-1 at FanDuel, just over 15-1 at DraftKings, and 17-1 at Bet365. So if you do want to tail this touchdown parlay, we just dropped a quick slip link in the YouTube chat, and you can tail that parlay and sweat that out with Sean and I. All right. Sean, we're locked and loaded now. Action Playbook Live for conference championships. We're on here now. So Action Playbook Live. I want to remind everybody we'll be back here in 2 weeks for our best bet show for Super Bowl 60. In the meantime, though, make sure to like and subscribe to the Action Network channel. This will get you the notifications when a new show is up. We're going to have a ton of Super Bowl preview shows, player prop releases, futures. Also, after the games tonight, make sure to download the Action app because all of our experts are going to track an exclusive Super Bowl 60 bet that will only be available on the app to our subscribers. So thank you again for joining us for Action Playbook Live for the NFL Conference Championships. Bon chance.